Hey guys, welcome to the Heart of David. Hope you guys are doing well this weekend. Um, Shame. I think shame is one of the biggest killers out there for a lot of things. I think a lot of people today suffer with a lot of shame. I think a lot of the way the internet is, the way that things are portrayed. I'm sure there's a lot of trauma out there. Um, when you think of, there's a lot of, fatherless homes, and there's just a lot of trauma out there. I know there is. I know because do I still suffer with shame? Of course I do. It was much worse when I was younger. Now this is a topic that, and as you can see, the name of my channel is the Heart of David. This is a Christian, born again Christian YouTube channel, and I think this topic is extremely important. Why? Because if you put your faith and trust in God, then, and it's not an easy journey, but it's a liberating one. You may find yourself in a place where a lot of that those feelings of shame start to dissipate because you start to gain hope in Christ and a hope in an afterlife. And like the Bible says, there is no condemnation in Christ. God will never put us to shame. Think about that. At the end of the day, the person that has your back all the time is Christ. And just because things go wrong for you doesn't mean that he doesn't love you and have your back. As long as you keep pursuing faith, I believe. And just look at my life. My life was like the book of Job. You have to look back just to see why. A lot of pain, physical pain, but also a lot of psychological suffering. A lot. I couldn't write everything I went through in a book, literally. I couldn't. Both pain and psychological reasons. I did write a book, but there's no way I could fit in everything. There's just so much stuff that happened in my life. And so, I'm going to give you an idea of, like the beginning of my life. And I suppose this video, like all my videos, are meant to give you hope. But I think this one in particular is extremely important because people kill themselves because of it. And people have trauma. And then, okay, so just so you know, I have both autism and CPTSD. I have bipolar disorder. These are associated with autism, some mental health disorders. CPTSD isn't, but I'm more prone to it. And that began when I was 14, after I was hit in the face multiple times. That's when mine began. I'm not going to not say that. That's what happened. I never felt the same after that. I remember going back to school the next day and the following weeks, and I felt a lot of shame by what happened, and I thought it was extremely abnormal. And I mean, anyways, I'm not going to get into that. I was already a sensitive person before that, but I didn't suffer with that. That really threw my life for a loop, and I went through a lot of stuff. I got into drugs, I got into alcohol, I became a major addict, and I drank on the weekends, and like I could go, blackouts, and I said a lot of stuff. You know that feeling? I said a lot of stuff. I did a lot of stuff. I got in trouble with the law a lot when I was younger, and I was doing it because I was overcompensating both for autism, which I was never diagnosed with. That was a problem, not knowing. I just needed an outlet, and school wasn't it. So I got in trouble with the law. I wasn't a bad person, like, like face to face like that, but I was out doing bad stuff. Even though I had no issues making friends. I had no issues making friends. I had no problem, having a girlfriend or something like that. But I didn't. I felt no confidence. I didn't feel as good as other people. Right? You start looking at other people. You start looking at what everybody else is doing. Don't do that. Today's day and age, what people do is they watch TikTok and YouTube, not educational stuff. I'm talking about garbage, and they try to reflect their life to that. And in many cases, that's just not going to happen. You're trying to be somebody who you're not. If you do things like cut out Facebook, unless you're like selling something, or you do that, you cancel out the noise of this world, then your mind can start working, right? Then you start doing things. And that's exactly what happened to me. I remember, okay, I grew up in a home, I feel grateful to have, had food and clothing and all that. But I knew my folks were not like most parents. They were cautious. They were strict, and really to be respected and feared. Okay, and that can be detrimental. And for me, it was. Guys, I love my parents. I do. But I recognize what it did to me. I always remember looking, being at other friends' homes and just saying to myself, like, they're so relaxed in what, they allow their kids to do, my friends, their children to do. Here, borrow the car, you can borrow it. Just come back when you're ready. My parents would be like, this is the time limit, right? But it was like that. It's like, you can't use the washer. You can't wash your car on the driveway. I didn't have a car, okay? That's another thing, too. But that's the way it was. And those things, when you have parents always saying, danger, 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 caution, like, you don't take risks, and you learn those things. Anyways, it was tough for me that way. It just was. My friends have no idea I was going through that. And why do I say it like that? Because, if they heard that, they might say, like, oh, that's not true, but it was. I rebelled anyway. I got in a lot of trouble. And it is my belief, I know it's the truth, that I got in trouble. Well, I thought it was fun, number one. When I think back to it, I still think that it was fun, but I recognize it was stupid. It's not right. I was doing it to rebel against my parents. It was almost like a rebel without a cause type thing. I got into so much trouble, you guys have no idea. I should have been kicked out of school so many times, but they let me back in each and every time. Suspensions. I even got expelled, but they let me back. Got into drugs and alcohol. This was in a time where there was no internet, no phones, all that type of stuff. At least, well, at the end, no, it wasn't really. The internet really, even though it was out, I mean, it was out in the 90s, but I mean, to be able to do a Google search was more like 1999 or something like that. So, and mass production phones were maybe starting in 1997. Don't take me for the year, okay? So we were out doing a lot of stuff, and I was drowning my trauma, my fears, my autistic social anxieties, and of course my complex PTSD with alcohol, with benzodiazepines, which turned into a major addiction. Only through God do I not do those things. I don't need AA. I don't need NA. I don't need those things because of God. I never wanted to. Here's the thing, okay? I never wanted to admit. And you know how you stuff things so far down? You know, psychologists talk about that. Like, you know, you have repressed traumas and like that. Some of that stuff really is true. And for me, what I stuffed down was I stuffed down what happened to me when I was 14. Okay? I didn't really come to that conclusion until I moved in here by myself. Excuse me. Because I started to face myself and I started to realize I felt liberated by knowing that, because I knew the starting point. It was the Bible it was all the things I was learning and the truths and everything in it, that the only way to release your spirit, to have the spirit of a child back again, but the Spirit of God in you. If you put your faith in God, I'm telling you, God will draw near to you. If you try, if you believe. I lost the Spirit in me because I became so physically ill. I went through horrible things, man. My first intractable pain disorder, caused by the serotonin syndrome. Like I was in like a psychosis half the time. That was a 13-month ordeal. It was very scary. I ended up with a very severe intractable pain, full body, and I went 18 years without a diagnosis. That caused me so much shame. Walking into a doctor's office or pain clinic, and someone who you know for sure has probably half your pain is treated, you feel maybe in a different way. I became jealous of people with pain disorders diagnosed, but that's understandable. I just wanted to know what I had. Then my spine happened. That's a very serious one. Both of them are very serious. Adhesive arachnoiditis. I didn't know that for 13 years because it lay in my spinal canal. Going to doctor's appointments, like hundreds of doctor's appointments, and but it was their fault why they weren't throwing out a diagnosis. I felt a lot of shame. A lot of shame. I have a lot to say and teach on this topic. Yeah, I could teach this topic. It's kind of tough. I don't mark these things down on purpose because I do want to do them in real time. My hope is to help somebody who needs help because they suffer with shame, they suffer with all these things. It was really hard for me growing up. So think about it. I didn't know I had bipolar disorder. I didn't know I had autism, and I didn't know what CPTSD was. The internet wasn't around to tell those types of things. Teachers never picked it up. Watching my brothers, 3 brothers, and friends in high positions, working. They all had cars. Yeah, I got my license when I was 18, but I never had a car because I never worked full time until I was maybe 20 something. And even then it was too hard for me. Like I wasn't stable because why? Because I was drinking and doing drugs. It's funny, you look back on your life. I'm 45, I'll be 46 soon enough. So it's August, September, October, November. You look at your life and you're like, man, what was I doing? What was I doing? Why was I wasting my time? Like, smoking marijuana with my friends for as many years as we did. I was the first one to stop of them. It was affecting me differently than them because of because of my psychology, because of autism, because of all the sensitivities. But I watched people get ahead of me, and it was hard. And the further they got ahead of me, the further I felt from them. Not my family, but like friends and stuff, and buying homes and apartments and motorcycles. I say that because I have one now. And to tell you the truth, the life I lead right now, I'm really busy, like all the time. And I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to say it in any type of way. It's good. I have my hands filled with things that I couldn't have ever imagined before. And the credit goes to God. Did I push myself? Yes, of course I did. But it was the Spirit inside me. And as they say, right? Jesus says the wind blows, just like when the wind blows where you don't know where it's going to blow. So is the Spirit. In the last number of months, and believe me, I have a difficult time speaking. I say this, I should say that in every video I make, because they're not all the same people who watch me. So for the people who haven't seen me, I have 12 different pain disorders. I have difficulty speaking. I have very severe abdominal pain, so it's very tough. You know, I've made a lot of different videos and a lot of different channels, and I tell people that, you know, I tried to take my life and God wouldn't let me succeed. And those were to do with pain, and those are true. But I was also trying to take my life because probably partly a big part to do with shame, but other things. I didn't want to live on. That is common in autism, by the way. But I know it's also because of that. I would say it's probably half and half. My life was very hard to bear. And why? I'm going to get to this, and I'm going to get to this part, and then I'm going to get to when I moved in here. And I forget things very quickly, like I already have. It's just the way it is. I don't want to write things down. Just give me a sec. Maybe you've heard this analogy, and it goes both for having sex with a woman or having constant sex with people before marriage, and whatever. It doesn't matter if it's homosexual, if it's lesbian, all sexual things before marriage. Anything else that happens to your life, say you were assaulted, you had abusive psychologically, physically, whatever. What these things do to you. Sorry, I'm very breathless. Maybe you've heard this analogy before, and it's a good one. Excuse me. I'm not a Calvinist, but I heard this by John MacArthur, and he said, each time you do, let's just say, an immoral sexual act, or let's say you steal something, or you say something really bad to someone who didn't deserve it, in your brain, in your mind, in your spirit, let's say, that's a better term. In your spirit, a scar builds. So when that happens, you get a scar. The Spirit of God, if you put your faith in God, all those types of things, yes. That's 75% of that can be lifted if you put your faith in God. If you believe that God is real, all that, you're born again, I'm just going to say. But a scar still remains there. You have to heal these things. And the biggest thing here is that you have to stop doing them. You have to stop doing these things that hurt you. Put scars in your mind. The whole name of the game is to stop scarring your spirit. Because if you do too much of it, you'll lose it. You'll lose your spirit because you'll be watching porn all day. You'll be playing video games all day. It's whatever you're doing. That's. I'm not saying video games is bad, but I don't think it's good either. I think you get my point, right? You got to stop that. You got to stop the bleeding. You have to stop the bleeding. You have to start. I'm not saying works, okay? Start being a better person, though. Try to. I don't think works save you, but I'm just saying. So I'm going to get to where I was when I moved in here. And just so that was 6 years ago. And when I moved in here, the only diagnosis I had were for a brachial plexus of my shoulder, and other stuff there's damage on my body that I was told about. Some stuff wasn't told to me that I've had to find out myself. I didn't know my full body intractable pain disorder. I didn't know I had adhesive arachnoiditis. I didn't know I had degenerative disc disease. I didn't know a lot of stuff. My abdominal disorders, I didn't know them. It was horrifying. I didn't want to live. I was in so much pain. I was underdosed, undertreated. Like I said, it made me feel a lot of shame. Like I would be in the elevator, guys. When I walked in here, I could barely walk. I could barely speak. I was so weak. Walking 100 feet was hard. And I'd go out for walks every 50 feet. I'd be punching my legs because of the cramps in my legs. You may say to me, like, you know what? I don't care. When I started making videos and people would say things, people in comment sections say nasty stuff. You have to learn to become indifferent to it, unless there's something you're doing wrong for real. But there's, people out there who do that stuff. That's another thing that I had to get used to. There's people out there that just want to throw you off the cliff. They would if they could. I don't want to be a hypocrite in anything I say. Is it possible to believe in God and not be saved? And in my case, it seems to be. Guys, okay, you're gonna. I know what you're gonna say. I know everything you're gonna say. But bear with me. Maybe I was saved, okay? Since I was a child, I believed in God. I believed in Jesus Christ. I did. I knew it wasn't a fable. Things that psychiatrists, or Carl Jung would say, is what were they called? I think like coincidences. You know the word I'm looking for, right? That'll come to my mind later. When something seems just so unlikely, but it happens anyways. There's nothing coincidental in this life, and what that is just called God. But listen, even though I believed I was doing things contrary, and my faith, here it is, my faith, like, here I was just wanting to die because of my pain. But that, I guess that wasn't in God's will at all. Excuse me. Or throughout my whole life, because I tried to take my life many times. I'm not like that anymore, and I will not be like that anymore, and I know it. I know it through faith in God, but is it possible to believe and not be saved? So for me, when I moved in here, when I got by myself, and I didn't have my abdominal problem in my gallbladder yet, and kidney stones, really, not at that point. But I still had a severe abdominal disorder, and then that big scar on my abdomen, adhesions and stuff like that. I had a lot of physical stuff to deal with, a lot. And I had to start working out, get stronger, start doing chores, start going out for walks. It was really, really painful. I always had a Bible or Bibles lying around, and I would open it for a bit. I'd look at it and stuff like that, but really nothing. Still stuck in the Catholic system in my mind. I can't tell you how hard it was. All of a sudden, my mom died, and then, like a year later, my dad kicked me out. He didn't just leave me. It wasn't like that. And with all the pain disorders that I had, guys, I'd been couch and bed bound for 10 years, close to 10 years. I was in a really bad state. How am I going to do this? I was like thrown into a situation where I had to do everything myself, and it was really hard. A lot of pain. And then I came to points where I realized, like, off and on, I'd be like, maybe I have to see a therapist. I got to see a psychologist. I got to see this and that. And I had a pain psychologist from a clinic that I'd gone to in the hospital, and she stayed in touch with me for a little bit. And, I caught on to autism, and finally I did get that diagnosis, right? But I realized, and I remember calling her one day and suddenly being forward about my life. And a verse comes to mind. And I hope this hits somebody right in their soul, because you're going to have to realize this when you're suffering with shame, when you're suffering with... I almost do say to you, get over it. Get over what you are. Accept what you are. Embrace whatever it is so you can treat it. Look at this. The famous love chapter, right? 1 Corinthians 13. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. I see so much childish stuff both on the internet and both in people, men, grown men, boys. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. I'll just leave it there. but it means one day we'll see Christ face to face. If you're born again, if you can get into that, just read the Bible. Just start learning about God. Don't give up. Don't give up. No matter what you think, you don't throw away that Bible, because your answer will be there. Just keep pushing. Read, learn the doctrines. Read the Bible yourself. Don't listen to other people. If you have trouble understanding the Bible, go do a Google search, see what pops up, read what it says, and make sure that's what is true for the, that's how you start learning these things. Start learning doctrines, start learning prophecies. I don't think God will draw near to you unless you want to draw near to God. Like, you put your faith forward and do that, and maybe he will draw near to you. And you can fight these shameful feelings in a society that's full of shame. Look at all the things people are doing, like OnlyFans, and you know how many, all the porn. There's a lot of shame there. There's a lot of suicides happening. Don't be that person. Listen to my experience. You see, one thing that is running rampant, and you can't stop it unless you can turn off the internet, cut off the electricity, is that there are so many opinions. There's so many people, like the people you see out there on videos, they're just like most people you see, like this rich and this and that. It's not what you think it is. When you look on Facebook and Instagram and all these things, people showing you things, but when they walk away from taking that picture, that's not really who they are. Sometimes it's few and far between. There's a lot of trash out there. You're going to find a lot of truth in the Bible. So, I'm not you, and you're not me. But for me, I started to get my own medication. There's a lot of pain medications I take. A lot of, like a lot of supplements and things I have to get. I started to, it's hard to do when I'm in this condition at the beginning and with difficulty speaking. It was picking up the phone, doing it yourself. What choice did I have, right? It was having an idea, building my beeswax candle business. I just had an idea. I had some money, bought wax, bought molds, started going door to door, started selling to people all around, start talking to people. But it begins like that, and I'm not saying you have to do that. It's okay to be a lone person. It is. Look, I'm alone. I live alone. I have a little soul here, but do I wish I had a wife? Do I wish I was living like that? Yes, of course I do. But I see a benefit with this, and I remember what it's like to have girlfriends, but it was, quite some time ago, really. There's a reason why things are so stagnant, and why men literally travel from North America to Asia to try to find a wife. And then they'll be told by women here that you're only doing it because you want a wife that will submit. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. They just want to have a family. They want a calm wife, Cut out the bad behaviors that you're doing. I don't care what it is. When I learned that God is no respecter of persons, And when you look on the internet, you see things like Elon Musk and I'm not going to say people are bad. That's not what I'm saying. But Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Tucker Carlson, it's all the same faces. It's all the same talking faces. You know what? If the most prettiest woman came up to me and proposed to me here, right now, I would say no. If I got to know her and she believed in love God, that may be a different story. But when you go out, you say, oh, movie star, look at there's a movie star, look at that right there. It's like, I don't even care. You're just a person. And this is the type of thing that you'll run into in the Bible. God is no respecter of persons. No one person is better than another. And that is key to this shame. Because, and of course I still run into it. Like, I knock on a lot of doors, okay, to sell my candles. It's just a side thing. And I talk to a lot of people. And there are times when I feel shame. But, like, not near what I used to. And I'm getting a lot better at speaking to people by doing it too, though. It's actually to do with physical, like my abdomen and my speaking. But still, I still feel it. It's not nearly as bad. When you start putting these behaviors, masturbating, things that scar, like I said, that scar your mind, scar your psychological, scar your spirit. If you keep doing those, I'll give you an example. You're going out to meet a woman on a date. So you're sitting at the table. Let's say you keep doing those behaviors. Say before you left, you masturbated. So you're going for a date. You sit down, you start speaking to her. You can't even look her in the eyes because you know in your mind all you do is watch porn and all that type of stuff. Then in the opposite, same thing. Another person comes that doesn't do that. Speaks to the same woman and has confidence. Stop these types of behaviors. And I'm not saying works. I'm saying it because in my case, I'm not saying because I cut out my behaviors I was saved. Not like that. Mine came out of the blue just one day, born again. I felt really convicted. Very convicted. Like in a way that was like a hammer. Something I'd never felt before. I didn't know really what was happening, but it was like all of a sudden I understood what sin is, what it does to a person, its destructive nature, and where it will eventually lead. In most cases. Horrible. If you can see sin outside of the box for what it really is, you might stop doing things that are just making you ill in your mind and leads to shame. So, I'm not talking about works, but I'm saying if you're doing those types of things, they're not helping you. I have what feels like a gallstone all the time. I can also get, with that at the same time, kidney stones. I'm always fighting them with oranges. I have another very painful abdominal disorder, and then again I have my adhesions. So when I go to like a family function, and there's like, let alone my other pains, okay? And my psychological and neurodevelopmental disorders. So when I go to a family function, I hate it. Sorry, just like, why? Not because of them, because I can't barely sit still with what I've mentioned I suffer with in my abdomen. That's just the nature of my life. So you're saying, well, why would you feel shame? Because you try sitting around. I can't even sit at the dinner table. They all sit down, they eat their turkey dinner and stuff like that. You say, well, bring your own. Like, I'm not going to do that. It's those types of things that I deal with today. So when I just say, hey, you guys want to meet me? Let's go for a walk. Because I go walk, then it's like for that moment I don't really have to deal with it. But I'd go crazy if I had to sit still all the time. The biggest key to this, besides reading scripture and living by it, try reading it once a day. What will that do to you? Read a chapter. Just read a chapter and do it every day. There isn't a day that I do not read it. In the morning, right? I spend about an hour reading it while I take my meds and eat my first meal of the day, but here's my main point. Don't do something stupid. Don't drink. Don't take drugs. Any drugs. Marijuana, get rid of it. And if you don't harm yourself either. And there's no shame in calling a telehealth type thing. Crisis line. There's nothing wrong with that. I've done that just to speak to them, not because I wanted to die. I did that quite a few times when I first moved in here. But, and there's no shame in that. To get better, what you have to do is you have to face and understand what it is that is in your nature, what you're suffering with. You're going to have to accept it. You're going to have to accept it. Accepting that I have complex PTSD. I just remember when I first started to see the what it was, and hearing that complex. I know I have PTSD, but complex. I knew it by a lot of the actions and shame is a big part of that one. A pretty big part of that one. But introspection. Say, why do I do this? Start researching it. Look for ways to get out of it. Face your fears head on. Because how else are you going to do it? Start new projects. Don't, if you have to go to an appointment, make sure you go to it. Push yourself. But what makes it so much stronger, so much more robust in infinite way is by believing in Jesus Christ. Because you can do all things with Jesus Christ. You will be shocked and amazed the things you can do. There is no condemnation in Jesus Christ, and he will never put you to shame. That doesn't mean you're not going to feel shame. But towards his love towards you, he's never going to put you to shame. And he's the only one, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that you can trust. There is another way. And I went through a life of this. Very tough to go through. But just take my lessons. God bless.